Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are unpacking a true ancient philosophical masterclass. We're looking at a text called MN28, or The Longer Simile of the Elephant's Footprint. It's a deeply profound yet incredibly practical teaching, and interestingly, it wasn't delivered by the Buddha himself, but by his greatest student, Sariputta. What makes this so absolutely fascinating is how it seamlessly connects the grand, cosmic scale of the universe right down to the micro level of our own biology and mental resilience. It's a pretty incredible journey, so let's jump right in.
Okay, let's dive into this vivid metaphor that gives the text its name. Sariputta starts with a really striking, memorable image. The footprints of all creatures that walk can fit inside an elephant's footprint. Because of its sheer massive size, it just naturally contains all the rest. He's using this footprint as the ultimate container. Just like the elephant's print encompasses all other footprints in the jungle, he's telling us that all skillful qualities, literally the entire Buddhist path, are completely included within the Four Noble Truths.
Section 1. The Elephant's Footprint Metaphor and Unpacking the Truths. So if everything fits inside this footprint, let's take a look at how Sariputta unpacks these foundational truths and see what exactly is inside them.
Sariputta sets up a brilliant structure here. It's kind of like a Russian nesting doll. He starts with the famous Four Noble Truths, the truth of suffering, its origin, its cessation, and the practice that leads to that cessation. But then, he immediately opens up that first truth, suffering, and reveals that it's fundamentally made up of what are called the five grasping aggregates. Those are form, feeling, perception, choices, and consciousness. He's basically saying, to understand suffering, we have to deeply understand form. And to understand form, well, we have to look at what it's truly made of. Section 2, Unpacking the Four Elements. Now this is where things get really fascinating, because the text makes a massive pivot here. We step completely out of abstract philosophy and drop directly into the raw, physical world. Now what's really interesting here is how Sariputta maps out the entire physical universe. He takes the four elements, earth, water, fire, and air, and creates this brilliantly impartial and, frankly, completely unromantic map. He compares their internal biological manifestations with their external natural ones. For Earth, internally, it isn't some beautiful landscape, It's our bones, our flesh, and feces. Externally, it's the very ground that can be shaken by massive earthquakes. Water inside is our blood, sweat, and bile. Outside, it's the mighty oceans. Fire is our internal digestion and body heat, contrasted with raging wildfires that literally burn everything right to a cliff's edge. And air? That's our breath and the winds in our belly, mapped against external winds so completely still that not even the grasses on a thatch roof stir. It is a stark, complete map of biological and physical reality.
Section 3. The Illusion of Ownership. Sariputta doesn't just map this out to give us a biology lesson. Let's zoom out and look at the profound contrast between these macro and micro elements and what it actually means for how we live.
Think about this stark contrast that the text draws here. On one side, we have these ancient, massive external elements. The text describes catastrophic, epical events, oceans sinking hundreds of leagues until they can't even wet the tip of a toe, or wildfires burning across entire countries. These external forces are colossal, yet the text points out that even they are impermanent. They are liable to end, vanish, and perish. On the other side, we have our fragile, internal body, what the text calls an ephemeral body, lasting only a short while and appropriated by craving. The logic Sariputta presents is just devastatingly clear. If ancient, massive, external elements like literal oceans are impermanent and will eventually perish, why on earth do we fiercely cling to our incredibly fragile, momentary internal biology?
And that brings us to the crucial realization Sariputta repeats over and over again for each and every element. This is not mine, I am not this is not myself. Actually, it's not just a chant. It's a very specific, highly targeted philosophical tool designed to counter our deepest biological urges. This is not mine counters our craving and our sense of ownership. I am not this strikes directly at the conceit of our ego and our identification. It's a methodical way to dissolve the illusion that we somehow own the natural elements that are just temporarily making up our bodies.
Section 4. Weathering Human Storms. Okay, it's one thing to contemplate the ocean drying up while you're sitting quietly on a cushion. Let's transition from cosmic theory to the messy real world.
So here is the ultimate practical test Sariputta poses. What happens when this ephemeral, fragile body is actually attacked by others? It's a brilliant question.
and it snaps our attention directly to real-world emotional regulation. How do we apply this ancient theory when we're under pressure?
The text outlines a clear, pretty brutal escalation of conflict to test a practitioner's equanimity. First, it starts with verbal adversity, when others abuse, harass, and trouble you. Then it escalates. Others treat you with active loathing and detestation. Finally, it reaches the extreme physical level, strikes with fists, stones, sticks, and even swords. But remember what Sariputta is teaching us. The body is just elements. If the body is just a collection of earth, water, fire, and air, then a physical attack is literally just external elements impacting internal elements.
To emphasize just how deep this non-reactivity has to go, Sariputta quotes a famously intense teaching from the Buddha called the simile of the saw. Listen to this. Even if low-down bandits were to sever you limb from limb with a two-handed saw, anyone who had a malevolent thought on that account would not be following my instructions. I mean, wow, right? But it represents the absolute peak of mental immersion. It's the ultimate test, stating that true resilience means maintaining a tranquil, unified, undisturbed mind, even in the face of unimaginable physical destruction.
But hey, the text is incredibly pragmatic. It openly acknowledges that achieving this state of total equanimity is, well, incredibly hard. If a practitioner fails to maintain equanimity under pressure, Sariputta says they must stir up an intense sense of urgency. He compares it to a newlywed daughter-in-law who must be strictly on her absolute best behavior when she sees her father-in-law. It's a relatable, everyday anecdote, because, let's face it, in-law anxiety is literally a millennia-old problem. But it shows the intense, disciplined mental effort required to correct your mindset. On the flip side, if the practitioner does succeed in remaining equanimous, the text simply notes that they are happy because much has been done. It's a quiet but profound mental victory.
Section 5. The Architecture of Consciousness. Having explored the physical elements and our emotional reactions to adversity, we're now going to pivot to the most complex territory of all. Let's look at how the text analyzes the architecture of the mind itself.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the physical ties directly to the mental. Sariputta introduces the concept of the space element. He says that just as space enclosed by sticks, creepers, grass, and mud is called a building, space enclosed by bones, sinews, flesh, and skin is simply called a form. Our physical body is just a constructed container. It's architecture. There's no magical essence in a mud hut, right? And by extension, there's no magical essence in the physical body itself. It's just a space for things to happen.
Building on that physical container, he then gives us the exact mechanical formula for consciousness. It's a strict step-by-step sequence. Step 1, you need an intact internal sense organ, like the eye, ear, or mind. Step 2, external stimuli must actually come into range of that organ. But that's not enough. Step 3 is absolutely crucial. There must be corresponding engagement or attention. Only when all three align perfectly do we get step 4, the manifestation of consciousness. The text treats human awareness not as some mystical, spontaneous flash of a soul, but as an impartial mechanical chain reaction.
Section 6. The Web of Connection. As we draw toward our conclusion, let's zoom back out to the overarching philosophy and see how beautifully Sariputta weaves all of this together.
Remember that Russian nesting doll from the beginning? Sariputta brings us right back full circle. He explains that whenever this consciousness manifests through the senses, it instantly produces form, feeling, perception, and choices. And what are those? They assimilate right back into the 5 grasping aggregates. And as we learned at the very start, the desire and clinging for these exact aggregates is the origin of suffering. Sariputta elegantly ties the mechanics of our sense gates right back to the 4 Noble Truths, sitting perfectly inside that giant elephant's footprint.
Which brings us to the climactic summary of the text's core message. Sariputta presents this famous, profound quote: "One who sees dependent origination sees the teaching. One who sees the teaching sees dependent origination." This encapsulates the entire explainer, absolutely everything from the massive oceans drying up to a moments of anger when someone insults you to the very consciousness firing in your mind is conditioned. It is dependent on causes. Everything is an interconnected web of natural elements and mental processes.
So I want to leave you with a provocative thought that this ancient text challenges us with. If even the massive earth, the raging fires, and the deep oceans will eventually perish and vanish, why do we hold on so tightly to the fragile, momentary elements within our own bodies and minds? Think about how that daily grasping impacts your own emotional resilience when you're faced with adversity. What would happen if you truly let go of the illusion of ownership?
Take that with you, reflect on it. Until next time, keep exploring and keep learning.